This video is sponsored by Goat Guns, makers of authentic die-cast miniature gun models. Die-cast models of aircraft and tanks have been around forever, but when I came across Goat Guns' new range of gun models, I was impressed by the idea and the quality of the models. At 1:3 scale, each model has detailed working moving parts. When you select and receive your Goat Gun model, you assemble the kit yourself. The parts snap and screw together. Each Goat Gun kit comes with 3 dummy rounds and makes the perfect interesting desk display. When assembled, I found the models to be reassuringly weighty. I just picked up this M1 Garand, Thompson submachine gun and gun rack, perfect models for my desk in my man cave. Now you too can get your hands on a little bit of history for a fraction of the cost at goatguns.com. That's goatguns.com. Have a little fun. In the stillness of a Mediterranean night, an Israeli missile boat flotilla, armed with the brand new Gabriel anti-ship missile system, approaches the Syrian port of Latakia. As the Israeli boats draw closer to the Syrian port, they are detected by a patrolling Syrian torpedo boat, K-123, somewhere to their northeast. The patrol boat immediately radios the Syrian naval facility in Latakia, yet before it is able to flee, is struck by a flurry of 76mm shells. The Israeli flotilla moves east, with the INS Hanit remaining behind to ensure the enemy's fate lies beneath the waves. For the Israeli flotilla, their raid is foiled. With the Syrians aware, their secrecy is no more. The Israeli flotilla now races towards the Syrian coastline. On the night of the 7th of October 1973, an Israeli missile boat flotilla under the command of Captain Michael Barkai departs from Haifa Naval Base, heading towards the Syrian port of Latakia, a distance of some 195 miles. While en route, the Israeli flotilla splits into 2 parallel columns. The western column consists of the INS Miznak, Gaash and Hanit, the eastern column of Mivtak and Reshev. To the flotilla's south arrive 2 Israeli patrol boats and 4 Israeli helicopters ready to assist if need be. The Battle of Latakia takes place during the Yom-Kippur War. This war began on the 6th of October 1973, when a coalition of Arab states, including Egypt and Syria, launched a surprise attack against the State of Israel on the holiest day of the year in Judaism. Both states hoped to retake their territories lost during the 1967 Six-Day War. The Yom-Kippur War, however, would conclude with an Israeli victory. In the south, Operation Gazelle would see Israeli forces cross the Suez and march towards Cairo, encircling the Egyptian Third Army. While to the north, Israeli armour would advance to within 20 miles of Damascus. The aim of the Israeli missile boat flotilla heading towards Latakia on the 7th of October, one day into the war, is to cripple the offensive Syrian naval craft, mainly its Styx anti-ship missile-equipped vessels. After neutralising the Syrian torpedo boat and now drawing closer towards Latakia, the Israeli flotilla detects a new Syrian vessel. To their east lies a T-43 class minesweeper, underway at speed to the safety of Syrian coastal batteries, hoping to avoid confrontation. Unbeknownst to the Israelis, 3 Syrian missile boats, 2 Komar class and 1 Osa class to their south, are informed of the approaching enemy. Acting upon this, they immediately turn northwest to confront the rapidly approaching Israelis. The Israeli flotilla moves east, detecting the Syrian minesweeper once more. Now, 25 kilometers away, the vessel lies outside of the range of their Gabriel missiles. However, the INS Gaash launches its first Gabriel missile, well outside of its maximum range. The Gabriel skims across the wavetops of the Mediterranean, but reaches its maximum range. It falls into the sea. Aboard the INS Reshev, Commander Micha, with his missiles ready, watches as the distance closes. As the minesweeper enters range, Micha orders the Reshev to engage. The first missiles launch into the air. After the initial launch, the missile dives to 20 feet above the ocean top, racing towards its target. Minutes later, on the horizon, a bright light can be seen by the Israeli craft. The first missile has struck its target. Immediately, a second missile is fired. It follows the same path as the first. As before, the radars on the Israeli vessels guide the missile to its target, and it strikes the Syrian minesweeper within minutes. The Syrian minesweeper, aflame, limps to the southeast. The Reshef now detects 3 unidentified vessels approaching at speed. Simultaneously, Israeli crew begin to report balls of light arcing upward towards the horizon. The rapidly approaching craft are the Syrian missile boats, vectored from the south to intercept. 2 of them have just fired their own Styx anti-ship missiles towards the Israeli vessels. The weapons head towards the Reshef and Miftak. Both Israeli vessels turn south to face the enemy so as to reduce their target cross-section, and begin manoeuvring wildly and deploying clouds of chaff to confuse Syrian guidance radars. Aboard the Reshef, its electronic countermeasure equipment is activated in an attempt to confuse the Syrian missile seekers as to their true accurate location. As the Styx missiles complete their approach, they fly overhead, falling into the sea beyond the Reshef and Miftak. The Israeli missile boats, disabling their electronic countermeasures, advance south towards the Syrian vessels. Disheartened by the Styx missile failure, the 3 Syrian missile boats now retreat south to remain outside of Gabriel range. As the 2 flotillas race south, the only Syrian vessel still carrying missiles, the Soviet-built Osa-class missile boat, turns north to face the pursuing craft. With distances closing, aboard the pursuing Reshef, Commander Micha gives the order to fire, but is immediately informed of an electronic issue preventing this. The Ga'ash and Misnak take over the engagement. With the Osa-class missile boat rapidly approaching, the Ga'ash, under Lieutenant Commander Scheffler, surges forward towards his enemy. At under 30 km range, the Osa-class fires a Styx missile. Spewing chaff, the Ga'ash begins a series of vigorous maneuvers. With the Styx missile in the air, Ga'ash launches its own Gabriel anti-ship missile in return. The 2 missiles pass one another in the air, racing towards their respective targets. Succumbing to the Israeli countermeasures, the Styx missile falls into the sea, short of the Ga'ash. But the radar aboard the Ga'ash detects another rapidly approaching missile. Scheffler orders another Gabriel fired in return. Again, the 2 opposing missiles pass each other in the air above the waters of the Mediterranean. Once more, the Osa's Styx missile splashes harmlessly into the water, but the first Gabriel arrives at its target. The Osa is obliterated into unrecognizable fragments. The Misnak launches 2 more Gabriel missiles at one of the fleeing Komar-class missile boats. Meanwhile, the second Gabriel missile that had been fired from the Ga'ash, with its target destroyed, splashes into the sea. The 2 missiles from the Misnak scream into their target and both strike the Komar, blasting the craft to smithereens. With 2 Syrian vessels destroyed, the last remaining Komar-class missile boat races towards the Syrian shoreline. However, the Israeli flotilla, shortening the distance, identifies that the Komar class, desperate to get away, has beached itself in shallow waters several miles off the coast. But so close are the Israeli vessels now to the Syrian coastline that coastal defense batteries begin to target the approaching Israeli craft. The Misnak is ordered to close distance with the beached craft, whilst the remaining craft of the flotilla withdraw. Approaching to within 40mm cannon range, the Misnak fires, peppering the Syrian craft and destroying it in the shallows. To the north, the INS Hanet is ordered to perform a coup de grace on the Syrian minesweeper. It fires a final Gabriel missile at the vessel, with an accompanying volley of 76mm rounds. With this, the minesweeper explodes, turning on its side and slipping below the surface. The first battle at Latakia would go down in the history books as the first missile boat versus missile boat anti-ship missile engagement in history. The 5 Israeli missile boats have engaged and neutralized a Syrian minesweeper, torpedo boat, and 3 missile boats without loss. 4 days pass, and in this time the Israeli military has been staggered by the early successes of the Arab attack. Now, on the 11th of October, Captain Barkai departs from Haifa. This time, with a flotilla of 7, The aim is to provoke Syrian missile boats into leaving the safety of port, where they can be destroyed in open sea. While the Israeli missile craft had success in the first engagement a few days before, this time the Syrian craft will make things much more difficult. 5 boats of the flotilla fall under the command of squadron leader Yaakov Nitzan, who sweeps west towards Cyprus and north towards Turkey before they begin their loop south, pausing off the northern Syrian shore. Captain Barkai, commanding 2 Sa'ar 4 missile boats, positions himself west of the port of Banias. At 12:50 am, Captain Barkai orders the assault. As they speed east, the force to the north progresses south, dropping a series of electronic decoys to confuse Syrian radar into believing there are Israeli vessels where there are not. Syrian radar installations begin to report of 5 groups of targets, showing 17 different ships. Reports of Israeli helicopters over several coastal positions overwhelm Syrian Naval Command. In response, they order 2 missile boats to engage the approaching enemy vessels. 2 other missile boats are ordered north from Tartus to engage the enemy vessels targeting Banias. As Nitzan's force approaches, 2 of the 5 craft swing out of line towards Mina al-Baida and immediately begin firing on coastal artillery positions and the naval harbour itself. The coastal artillery ignites into action. The 3 remaining craft continue south towards Latakia. Suddenly, from amongst a nearby group of foreign merchant ships, a barrage of missiles heads straight for the Israeli boats. Despite the risk of striking a merchant ship, Israeli commanders are ordered to return fire. With accurate coastal artillery fire raining down on them, the Israeli craft zigzag at top speed as they try to gain a bearing on their targets. The Hetz is first to locate an enemy target, and within seconds launches its first missile, quickly followed by the Harev and the Haifa. The missiles power on towards the group of vessels. With no way to detect if the Gabriels are tracking Syrian or merchant vessels, the risk of collateral damage is high. Both Syrian missile boats are struck, but neither is sunk. At the same time, 2 merchant ships, Japanese and Greek in origin, are also hit, destined to sink. Still at distance, the 3 Israeli craft form up, with the Hetz in front and the Heref and Haifa following in line. They head east towards the Syrian ships once more. Suddenly, another Styx missile is launched from somewhere amongst the merchant ships heading towards them. The missile races over the Israelis' heads, splashing into the sea behind. However, behind it, another Syrian missile screams in towards the Israeli craft. With all available hands manning their stations on the Israeli vessels, a cook mans his machine gun and peers into the night. He spots the incoming Styx and opens fire. Amazingly, he scores a direct hit, sending the incoming missile into the sea. Still unable to pick out the Syrian craft among the merchant vessels, there is little likelihood of any further success, and the Israeli flotilla is ordered to withdraw to Haifa. In all, the 2 battles of Latakia would display the first ever naval battle in which missile boats faced one another, demonstrating not only the capabilities of the Gabriel and Styx missile systems, but also the major innovations made by Israeli scientists in electronic warfare systems. The Syrians would leave the first engagement with 5 craft sunk, and the second with a further 2 assumed damaged. For the Syrian Navy, these engagements have lasting operational and tactical implications. For the remainder of the Yom-Kippur War, Syria would not challenge the Israeli Navy again, having learnt a painful yet valuable lesson. Israel successfully achieved its strategic aims in forcing Syria to scrap pre-war plans of coastal raids and interdicting Israeli-bound shipping. What consumed them now was the defence of their harbours and installations. On our sister channel The Intel Report this week, we're looking at the outrageous story of how Israel covertly extracted the missile boats used in this battle from the French port of Cherbourg.